Do you know what he's referring to? A reservation wait list? What is that exactly?
So Disney, from what I understand, and I have done, you know, a great deal of research myself on this, and this is why I tell folks, hey, whatever is happening on the international parks, definitely watch it, because, you know, sometimes Disney will do stuff as trial balloons, try it in different markets, or they'll see what the Oriental Land Company is doing and they'll adapt it. When another park does something, definitely pay attention, because sometimes it'll come to a park near you, maybe in different form or whatever. From what I understand, Disneyland Paris is doing something where they're going to allow for the option to actually be put on a wait list for a day that might come up. I don't know if there's some kind of a fee attached to it or some kind of provision that allows for that, but the idea is, hey, instead of having people check the app all the time, seeing if there's actual dates, the date they might want be made available. Let's say it's just kind of X'd out right now because, you know, everybody's got every single slot taken up and that's it. Sometimes, as we know, you know, at midnight or whatever, some slots will open up periodically. But you know, before that day actually comes up, what if you could be put on a wait list system that just gets you right in there? I think that's what they're doing out in Paris, and that's a very interesting idea. I know, you know, when I was there last, I would have loved a wait list option, and maybe maybe you could put, I don't know, maybe a deposit down that, you know, that to kind of filter through the noise, so to speak, or I've heard of an idea of like, hey, to prevent squatters, right? Maybe you have to put down a certain amount down in order to fulfill that, and maybe you have a system similar to dining right now, right? Where you can't just make a reservation and then just cancel at the last minute. You have to cancel within 24 hours, or else you're charged $10 a head, kind of thing, right? These are all kind of interesting ideas, and I think Dave really touched on something here about how do we deal with, you know, squatting, how do we deal with people getting the access that they want, wait lists. It's a very, very interesting idea.
It is. I think that I'm not against the idea of a wait list. I think it's kind of clever, actually.
Right.
But I think that it would almost be unnecessary if Disney could just get the squatting under control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just get the squatting under control. Penalize people that are making reservations just to hold those spots and not showing up. And I think if you, or like you said, you're forced to put some sort of down payment, you know, on there. Maybe your credit card or your whatever gets, like, you know, there's a hold on there, and then if you show up, you don't get charged. If you don't show up, there's a fee.
Right.
I think if you can kind of address that, there really wouldn't be as much of a need for a wait list, you know?
Yeah.
Really address the squatting, because I think that's a big factor, at least here at Disneyland.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. It's a big deal because obviously, as you know, Walt Disney World, they have a far less percentage of annual pass holders as ratio to tourists, and they have 4 parks, and it's not really a big deal. For Disneyland, it's a huge deal because of the ratio between tourists and annual pass holders spread across 2 parks. So any way to eliminate squatting, I think, like you said, OG, this is why I kind of interrelated them in the way that I did earlier, is because they are interrelated issues. One affects the other quite greatly. Right. So I do agree with you. If you get rid of the squatting issue, maybe you don't necessarily have to deal with a waitlist program. You still have one, and do it to the extent of the kind of the bucket that you set forth for annual pass holders or magic key holders, and do it that way. But squatting, for me, I think, is the biggest issue. It's and you can do it in multiple ways, I think. You know, a lot of people, what they'll do, and I've seen this a lot, and OG, maybe you concur with this, maybe you can't, but I've seen this a lot, where people will make a reservation, they'll keep it, whatever, the day will come, and they do it like an errand. Oh, well, you know what? I didn't cancel before, so I got to run down to the Disneyland Resort real fast, check in, check out, I'm good to go. Or they
Yep.
come in last minute, right? They'll come in the last, 2 or 3 hours and, okay, check in, couple rides, and I'm off. And now you have a situation here where that person has checked in for a very short amount of time, right? And has taken an entire day away from someone else. And that is a huge, huge issue. I don't know the extent of the problem, but I'm sure they're finding this in their data.
Oh no, that's a problem. And I've heard that as well. And I don't know how Disney can even really enforce it, because at least with the no-shows, you can say, okay, you didn't scan in that day, you're penalized, right? But if someone's going to like manipulate the system where they're basically going to show up, they're going to scan, walk in the park, buy a Coke and walk out just to say they were there so they don't get penalized.
Sure.
That's a tough one on Disney's part, because what do? Do you start to tell pass holders, no, you have to stay at the park for X amount of time? I don't think that's really that great. That's a little authoritarian,
Yeah, exactly. You have to stay 6 hours and spend $60 per person if you want to come in. No, I don't think they're going to do that, and it's absolutely not enforceable. I agree.
Yeah, it's totally unenforceable. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one for Disney to kind of get around. One way they can possibly get around it, and I hate to give Disney ideas when it comes to this stuff, but you start charging for reservations. Any reservation you make, you're going to pay for it. So that would definitely de-incentivize people to just make reservation after reservation after reservations, because now you're paying for each of those reservations. That's a possibility, because then you kind of get around that whole thing of like, I made the reservation, I'm going to pop in and pop out. Well, it de-incentivizes that person because now they just paid for that reservation. So now they're going to want to spend as much time as they want. That might be the solution to it. And that
a little skin in the game. And I think that's kind of what they were thinking with the loyalty program, but they got scared, and we might get that again. See, this is a very interesting discussion here, because I think that might be exactly the ways they're kind of looking at it. And like I said, that goes with the deposit thing, right? Like you have to put money down, and if you don't show up, maybe you get penalized monetarily, like the dining reservations, for example. I want to give credit for that idea, and I just want to go ahead and get the name right, because let's see here. Who was that had that idea? I believe, yes, it was, I know exactly where I got it from now. It was from our good buddy George, his friend Mindy, that he used to do right on the Grand Circle Tour podcast together when I was actually in Disneyland the last time. She told me, she's like, man, the squatters are the biggest, it's just the biggest frustration, and here's how to do it. And so I want to give her credit. She's a dear friend now. Definitely thinking about you for sure. Another thing I was thinking of, which is very, very interesting, how you might be able to eliminate the squatting problem and people specifically coming in for limited amounts of time. What if you had limited arrival windows? Right, where you maybe couldn't come in past a certain point and so forth, right? Because a lot of people, they get off work, and that's kind of where they'll check in, check out, that kind of thing. So maybe it's like you have to show up before 6 or something like that. Right? Now, it's interesting because Fresh Bake's other video has a portion in the app including an arrival time. That's now part of the app's code, so to speak, and it's not being enforced, obviously. And maybe it was like an error or whatever. That's something that he implies. But it's interesting that it's in there. Yes, maybe they're coming up with all kinds of ways to kind of nip these issues in the bud, so to speak.
Oh no, they are. They're very creative over there at Disney, both with their content, both with their content as well as this kind of stuff. They will find a way to get around whatever they need to get around, especially if they feel like they're losing money on it.
Oh yeah,
they will definitely find a creative way to make that work for them 100%. So it's fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. Chapek always says, they're an innovative company. And I always kind of laugh because it's like, oh, yes, you're very innovative at separating my cash from my wallet, for sure.
Exactly.
Sector 2. Malfunction in Sector 2. All droids will be shut down for reloading of labor programs. Stand by for power disconnect.